What is up, my dude?
What's up, my guy?
How you been?
I've been pretty good. How about you?
Doing all right, bro. Doing all right. For
Good.
those listening, and to you, Mike, happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day, brother.
And to my 2% of listeners in England, scoreboard. So we won. You lost. Drink your tea.
Cleaners.
Just saying. To my foreign listeners that are not celebrating Independence Day, you should be. Um,
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so yeah, so happy Independence Day, everybody. Happy 4th of July. So
Happy
it's like,
Independence Day, dude.
what was that?
I said Happy Independence Day, dude. Super excited.
Absolutely. It's funny. It's like the rest of the year, I'll be like, man, our government sucks. They're taking over they're taking our rights away. This country's going to hell in a handbasket. Then the 4th of July comes, and I'm like, this is the best country in the world.
This is what I fought for.
This is America. It's like, like when you have family and you're like, no, 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 no. I can pick on my little brother. You can't.
No, you don't get near
Yeah. It's like, that's my job. You go away.
it. But anyway, how's everything going, dude? How you been?
Going good, man. Things are going good. Yeah, just life's going pretty good. I went out to the range today. Had an experience with the primary arm scope that sucked.
Less
I
than
think,
desirable.
yeah, I don't know if I just got a bad one or what, but I'm sending it back to get fixed. But I have one of their SLX 1-6s and went to go zero it, and I tried it on multiple different rifles. I had other people shoot it, and dude, the turret adjustments were just bad.
The
I
turret
mean,
adjustments?
dude, yeah. I mean, like, so my thing is like, you'd go out there and you'd be like, all right, I'm a little to the right. I'll move like 2 or 3 clicks, and you're like, whoa, 8 inches to the left. Okay. Uh, yeah, it was just gnarly, man. It was like probably the worst experience I've had zeroing something at all. And then, every rifle I shot had a previous optic on it, so I put the old optic back on it, thinking like, maybe I'm just retarded. And then nope,
Mhm.
banging, getting bullseyes the whole way. And I'm like, okay, so it's not me.
Yeah.
So a little frustrating with that. And then I had it on my G3, on my PTR 91, and I'm out there shooting with some guys, and of course I'm trying to zero this, and it looks like I'm retarded because I can't hit jack because the scope's screwed up. So to like gain
Oh,
my person to like prove that I wasn't like a complete screw up, I just took it off and started hitting steel at 400 yards with the iron sights just to like prove a point.
yeah.
So anyway, man, yeah. So hey, with 4th of July, I was kind of thinking about this, and I was thinking, like what's like your coolest 4th of July? Like, is there one that stands out to you?
Nothing is ever cooler, okay, in your 4th of July than your first Navy 4th of July. Well, you're not your Navy. First military 4th of July, dude. I'm talking full blown, fuckered up, America's fuck, out there with your boys, in your first duty station, in your first squad, whatever it may be. You're playing the most redneck shit you possibly can. I was hammered drunk all day. We started drinking at like 5 in the morning, whatever. Went for a morning run. That is probably the best 4th of July. Is right when I first got into the military, man. I could go
Uh,
into the story, but I don't want anyone to go to jail.
I was gonna say, it's like, let's be careful where this goes. I'd say, yeah, no, for sure. I definitely remember the first time after having been in the military. I joined up in June ish. Yeah, so I was in. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was in boot camp for 4th of July, and I remember being in boot camp for the 4th of July. Like, the running joke was like, "Dude, can you get more patriotic than this?" And it was like the one day, like, the food was crap the whole time, and then finally that day they gave us, it was like they had sausages and hamburgers and ribs, and there's tons of food, ice cream, cake. And we had one dude who was convinced that it was like a Band of Brothers moment, where like they were going to feed us a bunch of food and then just like kill us, you know, just
Yeah.
make it go till we puke. And we were about halfway through at this point, and I was like, I don't care. I was like, they can beat me till I die. I'm having the effing ice cream, all right? Like I've been here like 5, 6 weeks at this point. Like we're at towards the end of the tunnel, man. We're over halfway. I don't care anymore. I'm eating the pie. And sure enough, this kid doesn't eat like hardly anything, right? And we get back and it's holiday routine. Like no one beat us. Like basically it was just a pretty normal time. And the only thing I do remember is like going around the room. We went around we watched like the supermoto, like I joined the Navy because kind of video.
Yeah.
And then they had us kind of go around the room and tell each other like, you know,
your thing's doing it again, where it's like.
oh, is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we went around the room and they had us kind of talk about, you know, why did you join? And we go around the room and for the most part, pretty normal answers. Oh, you know, I wanted to serve my country. Oh, I wanted to get out of my small town. And we get to this one guy and he's like, he's second to last, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I grew up, I can't remember what city he's like, but I grew up in a really crappy part of this town. Like me and my mom and my sister were all living out of a car. You know, my brother and I had to get involved with the gang to put food on the table. He died in my arms during a drive-by, and I promised my mama I'd get her out of that situation. I told her I'd get her out. And he's like, and I had to leave the gang, so I had to get as far away as possible. He's like, I joined the Navy to try to get as far away from there as possible so that I don't die. You know, and this super like tragic, like everyone's dead, you know, terrible story. And the poor dude that went after him's like, I couldn't afford to travel, so I figured I'd join the Navy. You almost feel just as bad for the second guy because you're like, how do you follow that?
Dude, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, it was just like everyone was like, oh, you know, before that, everyone was like, oh, okay, cool, that's a cool reason. And then this guy, it's just like silence and like terrified faces. The only other really cool one that I can remember off the top of my head is I spent 4th of July deployed.
Yeah.
And I was in Bahrain at the time, and it was really cool celebrating the 4th of July there because there's a lot of British Commonwealth countries that are there as well. So the Brits, the Australians, the Canadians, the New Zealanders, they're all stationed there too. And so we had this big 4th of July celebration, and they're all coming out and getting the food too. And you know, the Brits, every time the Brits would come up, it was like this big running joke where it's just like, ha, gotcha.
This food's not for you.
Like, careful, I'll pour your beer into the harbor.
Swear to God, I'll do it. I can't have any of it. It's going in the harbor.
Yeah, well, that's like, I did being out there too, thinking about it. It was funny too, like having to explain. I had a British guy ask me, like, because they had a Cinco de Mayo party on base too when I was there.
They're like, what is this?
Yeah, he's like, why do you guys even celebrate this? It's like, it's about the Mexicans winning a battle against the French, and you celebrate it in America. And I was like, do you think we need a reason to eat tacos and get drunk?
Because we don't.
I was like, that's the most American thing ever. Okay? That's what we do. We blend cultures here.
You wouldn't get it.
You wouldn't get it. You conquered the world for spice and yet use none of
it. Caucasian.
But yeah, man. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's crazy to think, you know, how young of a country we are in the grand scheme of history.
Yeah.
And how much America has accomplished. You know, we've had our ups and downs along the way. Mm-hmm. But
well, everyone does.
Absolutely, you know, but it's like, it really is, you know, I mean, everyone wants to give, you know, it's always funny when you go on to like social media and stuff, and people from other countries, everyone wants to trash America, you know, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's because you're not being invaded yet. You know what I mean? Like, the French love to hate, but they hate to be reminded of 2 world wars. Same thing with, you know, like every European country. They're like, oh, you Americans, you're so blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, Germany, at least we didn't gas the Jews, all right?
We are way better than you think.
Kicked your butt twice. We're not afraid of shotguns, just saying, you know? Yeah. So it's just one of those things, you know? But it's crazy to think that, how it all started, like the unlikely odds of it all. And I was just thinking today back about like, like with like 4th of July is when we, basically published the Declaration of Independence. But it all started before that. You think about Lexington and Concord, like the
Yeah.
balls these dude had to be like 80 some odd just average dudes going against 1,000 troops of the world's best army. Like to put that in equivalent, like make an equivalent of that. Imagine you have a platoon of your best buds that you train with, you shoot with, maybe you've served with, or because I'm sure most of us are not training in a platoon-sized group. But imagine you have like 80 guys that you've known throughout your life, and they're in your front yard when the entire like state national guard that you live in rolls up, and they're like, "Hey man, you're gonna need to give us your guns," and you're like, "Nah, bro."
Not gonna happen, homie.
No cap, for real, for real.
For real.
But yeah, man, like that's the thing that gets me is like that's just it's so wild to think about.
Yeah. I think the whole thing in general is just wild to think about. Like everything that happened in so far and where our country is at and where it's going and the direction that we're at right now is just insane to think about, honestly, of what potential we have or we could have. Because like look what we've done. Look where we've
Oh yeah,
come.
yeah. I mean, like think about it, right? We've literally gone from sea to shining sea. We've kept it that sea to shining sea ours, made sure that nobody else was able to claim it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have that we basically became the world superpower in a very short amount of time. We put a man on the moon. I mean, like we've liberated Europe twice. We fought a war across 2 oceans, multiple continents with millions of men and won. Like these are no small feats. I mean, shit, we invented peanut butter. You're welcome.
We got you.
Yeah, like that. No Reese's without the peanut butter, man. Um, we've been the home of so many inventions. We've been the home of so many movements, and love it or hate it, the world would not be the same without America. I mean, right now there's tons of countries that the only reason that they're not just plowing through smaller nations that surround them is because we exist, and they
Yeah.
know that they have to mess with us. Like that's a big accomplishment, if you think about it. And whether that's where we need to be or not, that's something to negotiate on. But that's still that's pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
I think if you look at again how crazy it is to think that we started with 13 colonies, basically just hugging the ocean, and in the period of not very long after that, within 100 years, we basically expanded across the entirety of what is now the United States. And then as time went on, they became territories or states, or whatever. But I mean, by the 1870s, we had people living on both coasts and everywhere in between. We had railroads that were starting to, make their way across. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes about like my grandmother's grandmother was born in 1861 and died in 1961. I believe I could be wrong on that as far as starter like a year or two off, but I know she lived to be around 100.
Mm-hmm.
And she, you think about all the things that she got to see through our country. She lived through as a child through the Civil War. She made it through the expansion up into what is now what we recognize now as the United States. She lived through the Spanish American War. She lived through World War One, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, World War Two, civil rights, and well, I guess at the beginning of the civil rights. But yeah, I mean, it's like she went from living in a farmhouse with no electricity and no running water to having color TV.
Yeah.
or maybe I don't know, maybe not. I don't
Yeah, well,
know,
that was more my great
but you get what I'm
grandmother.
saying.
Like,
You get what
I
I'm
think back
saying.
about it. Yeah.
I mean, you get what I'm saying is like the thing where like the greatest form of transportation is, a horse, unless you live in an area where trains are at the time, to where you can fly around the world in a day. You can get anywhere. You had people working on their way to try to get to space. We hadn't made it yet, but we had the space program as well, and it's tracks. And I just think sometimes about like 100 years. If I live to be 100, what kind of crazy things I'm going to see, and like what kind of crazy advances we'll see, be made in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I
I
think, go ahead. Sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
that's all you did.
I'll say I think it's kind of interesting too to look back on at history sometimes. I think we get pretty doomer mindset with some of the stuff that's going on, and with the way our country's heading and with the way politics are going, and the way things have been leading the last several years, most of us kind of see like the writing on a wall for it being a bad time.
Yeah.
But I also think it's interesting coming from a historical standpoint. We've been through really bad times before, and we've still made it out. And I think the American people, there's something very unique about being an American that I think, at least for those of us who still believe in the idea of what America is, that there's just something about the freedom, having the freedom that being an American brings, that makes you just different from anyone else.
There's
There's
no one like Americans.
no, I mean,
There's no one.
there's a grit and a tenacity and a willpower there that just doesn't exist in the same levels that it does in other places. I again, like a lot of these examples, you can go back to like World War II, and you can look at again um, some of the writings that people talk about with how they compare people to the Americans, and they're, I mean, World War One, we sent the Marines over. They started calling them devil dogs, and one of them charged for war crimes because we were using shotguns. I mean, we terrified the people who brought out mustard gas to play with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh,
Just ain't
yeah,
nothing to fuck with.
yeah. I mean, like a vastly outnumbered American group of American Marines, in Korea, the Frozen Chosen holds off tens of thousands of Chinese, stacks them like cordwood. You know, well, Americans have got into battles where we've won against odds that shouldn't have been possible. You know,
Yeah.
there's just something about the fighting spirit of Americans to where like we don't take no for an answer. We will literally die before we take no for an answer. And I'm sure someone listening here will be like, come up with some kind of anecdotal, like, well, actually, in 1859,
Yeah.
which I say, screw you. You get the point I'm saying, trying to say.
Yeah, I mean,
um, but yeah, it's crazy to look back and think about how far we've come, both good and bad. The nation is definitely changed a lot, I think, from what the founders had intended. Uh, I think that there's a lot of events that in our country have brought about a lot of change that whether it be good or bad, in your opinion, it's shaped who we are at today. And I think
yeah.
it's important sometimes, like this is the country's birthday. It's important, I think, on your birthdays to kind of look back and kind of see like how far you've come in life. And for us, I think it's important to do that as a nation. And I think it's important to look and celebrate the good and learn from the bad.
Oh, you started making that noise again.
Oh, sorry. I was drinking water out of a cup with a straw.
Oh, gotcha. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. It is important to look back. It is important to realize that you have to stay ever so dynamic and so changing, just like the whole world is, man. It's never going to be plain and blank like it used to be. And you got to learn to just, hey, this isn't what I remember. This isn't what it's going to be forever,
Yeah.
But
It,
but in a total, yeah, absolutely. America is so good and so amazing that people have no fucking idea what they're taking for granted, And it's
I I think that's the biggest thing is people, like we have problems for sure, and I think sometimes we forget like how bad the rest of the world is. Not saying that we shouldn't fix our problems, but I'm saying we have to put them in context. You know,
yeah,
I think that when we look at the rest of the world, I know, you've been around the world, I've been around the world, we've been in other countries. For those of us who are listening who've been to. All right, so apparently the app we're recording on is a communist and hates us talking about America.
America, no.
It cut us off again, but we're back. We're like a bad case of herpes. It can't get us to go away.
Nope. You said just in Vegas, huh? No, we come everywhere.
Gross. But yeah, no, I think it's really good to look back and see some of the amazing things we've done. Like I said, the fighting spirit of the American, I think is unmatched worldwide. I think that, maybe I'm just biased, but there's a really good book too, by Glenn Beck, and it's called Miracles and Massacres. And the way that the book is structured is every chapter, it's alternating between a really good thing we've done historically and a really bad thing we've done historically. And yeah, it's really interesting. We're very well balanced in that sense. And basically, what the purpose of it is again to learn from our mistakes and to move forward, knowing like the good things we did. And one of the stories they tell in there, I always found interesting is, I'm gonna butcher this because I don't remember the guy's name, but basically he's hanging out around the DC area. He had tried to join the Marines earlier. This is around 1800, by the way.
Okay.
He joined the Marines, got on a ship, got super seasick. They kicked him out because this is back when, days of sailing, and you had a small group of Marines on ships, right?
Yeah.
His wife has left him for another man. He's lost his job. He's drinking himself to death, and he's down by the river, and he's like, I'm going to drown myself. It's not worth it. When lo and behold, someone walking by says, hey, man, are you going to the party? And he's like, the what? So Thomas Jefferson at the time had received like a gigantic several thousand-pound cheese wheel from the French, because that's what you did back in the day.
Yeah.
And he opened up the White House to everybody, and it was like a public cheese party, right? So he's
cheese party
for real. So while this is going on, some Americans have been taken captive as by pirates on the Barbary Coast in North Africa. And there's a debate going on in Congress about, should we rebuild the Navy since we just scrapped it and go fight them, or should we just pay them ransom and pay them off? And Thomas Jefferson was like, well, maybe it's just easier if we can just pay them off, not a big deal, and everyone was kind of like, well, yeah, but if we pay them now, they're just going to want more money later. And so this guy is at this party, trash, right? Just completely sloshed.
Yeah.
And he's talking crap about Thomas Jefferson. He's like, dude, this guy is such a pansy. He's like, you give me $50,000 and 6 Marines, and in like 6 months, I'll have those guys back. Like, no problem, And he's trash talking the president, except he doesn't realize the guy he's talking to is the president. And the president's like, all right, no balls. And so
I bet.
Next thing you know, this dude's getting seasick on his way across the Atlantic as he heads over to France with 6 Marines, and they drop him off in the south of France. He buys a couple of mercenaries, hops over to Egypt, he picks up a few more. They make their way across the desert, and they get to this first town after after starving and thirsting through the desert, like barely making it.
Oh, yeah.
And right before they get to the town, they link up with this U.S. warship that they were supposed to link up with. Well, the plan is like, they're going to go ahead and they're going to assault this town, and then the warship will follow a day or so behind, and it'll bombard the town if they still need it, right?
Yeah.
So they get to this first town, and by this point in time, they see the garrison there of some of these troops that are these pirate guys, and some of the mercenaries are like, yeah, I'm out. So they just leave them, So there's basically him, his 6 Marines, and maybe about 100 or so men, and there's a 600 or 700 strong garrison of this town. And he pulls a sword and pistol, and he goes, well, I know the Marines will follow me. So he jumps up over the deal, runs through the barricade, and sure enough, the only people following him are these 6 Marines. And they get to like the next barricade, and basically everyone is so shocked and amazed that this dude's doing this by himself, they just give up. And then not only do they give up, but he's like, hey, what's super awesome? the fact that like you hate the guy that's in charge as much as we do, let's go fight him. And they're like, all right. So him and his little merry band of men, as well as the ship towing along, uh, pulls up into Tripoli, bombards the hell out of it. They storm the garrison, kill who needs killing, put somebody they like in power, free all the prisoners, and that's how the Marines got the shores of Tripoli thing in there. But literally, all it took was just one drunk American to get no balls, and we rewrote history.
You gotta miss the old days, man.
Like never underestimate the power of a trash talking American. You know, I mean, we invented the atom bomb. You know, just saying, like take that as it is. Just throwing that one out there. We put a man on the moon. As far as I'm aware, the only people to do so. That's why we still use feet, not meters.
What the fuck's a kilometer?
You know, I mean, like we've invented some crazy stuff, you know, and it's funny because you know even our culture, just our culture, and the things we put out in social media, on TV, in movies. Everyone wants to trash talk Americans, but yet we're the biggest exporter of culture in the world. You know, even our enemies buy our movies. You know, even the people that like we're, you know, the likelihood of us going to war in the future pretty high. Does China buy like every one of our movies? Yes. You know, it's crazy to think like how much influence I think that our country has, and it really does bring out a really interesting question when you think like if you were to snap your fingers and make America disappear, what would the rest of the world do? And I think that, and again, maybe I'm just tooting my own horn here, but
yeah,
I think America, because of the position that we've put ourselves into, and because of the power that we've gained through time, I think we are literally like a big part of the puzzle here. I think we are the kind of pulling the strings to keep most of this together.
yeah.
I think the world would be a vastly different place if we hadn't been there, for better or for worse. You know, if we had kind of stuck more isolationist after World War II and kind of gone back to the way I think we were supposed to be, I think it would be a much different world. And I wonder if we'd be better or worse off for it. But I think it's a beautiful system that we have in the eyes of the founders when they made it. I think it's unfortunately been kind of hijacked by some people that want to use it for personal power, but it is, I don't know. I mean, I love my country, man.
Yeah. I like it, man. Well, there's a lot about this country that I love, and there's nothing more than there. Anyone that says that they're like, oh man, I wish I was somewhere else, or I wish I was born somewhere else. America's so horrible. For lack of better words, not to sound like a Trumpy, because I'm not. Go live there. Leave.
Don't. No, I mean, absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's one of those things. Again, it's like, look, our country has a lot of problems. We know this. This is 100% fact. We have our own issues. Things have been rough, but there is no other place I'd rather live in the world. You know, like if you think we have it bad here, go live somewhere else and see how rough it is, where we don't have freedom of speech protected. You know, if you would go look at England, for example, when we, you know, what country we separated from, you have to have a license to have a television. You can't buy a set of cutlery unless you're 18 and have like proper documentation. You can't carry a pocket knife. You can get jailed for mean tweets. You know, that this is what the rest of the world would consider like a very civilized modern nation, you know, with all the luxuries of home. And yet, you know, you can't tell people mean things on the internet without going to jail. You know, that's something that's like the ability to critique our government, the ability to address our grievances without having to have, you know, armed conflict to do so, I think is a very unique and a very beautiful thing. And I think we've inspired a majority of the world to follow suit. You know, you think about it, at the time that we became a country, most of the countries around the world were monarchies. We kind of, you know, popularized the whole republic thing. we were the great experiment because it was the first. Right. All right. Well, this app is deciding to kick us off. This is now the third time.
Yeah. So
I say we start wrapping it up on this one.
We'll wrap it up here.
Yeah.
absolutely always phenomenal to hang out with you, man. Absolutely always a good time to just fucking bullshit with you and pick your brain on everything. Happy birthday to us, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's going to complain about this being a shorter episode, one, it's the 4th of July. Cut us some slack. We're going to go shoot fireworks and do the American thing. And secondly, I don't care.
Thirdly, I have also been drunk for the last 48 hours. So get off. I'm not even kidding.
Better. But yeah, man. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Again, happy birthday America. For those listening in the States, which is most of you, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't get too caught up in all the craziness of the world going on. Just sit back and enjoy it. Enjoy the fact of where we live. Embrace it. Get goofy.
Yeah.
Serious. Yeah, July 5th, you can go back to being super weird, and you can go back to being, right where the rest of us are, right, and thinking about, hey, screw this, screw that. But for the 4th, man, live it up, love it. We only get one day a year to celebrate our country, so let's do it.
Taxes are theft.
What's that?
I'm just putting that out. Taxes are theft.
Yeah, absolutely. Go throw some tea in the harbor. Go, tar and feather a tax official. I didn't tell you to do that. But yeah, man, just enjoy it. So Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us through some technical difficulties we had. Like I said, I think this app might be turning communist because it keeps cutting me off when I mention freedom. So safe one. Don't blow your fingers off. Make sure that July 5th, you still have all the digits that you went into on the 4th with, or not. I'm not your dad.
Yeah.
So you do you, boo.
Live your life.
All right. Good talking to you.
Catch you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.